Hi everyone, it's Ryan with Lundquist Appraisal and SacramentoAppraisalBlog.com, and today I wanted to talk about converted garages and how I approach valuing them as an appraiser. So I was asked about this today in a real estate office, and I really wanted to follow up because I'm not sure that I articulated myself extremely clearly, but I just wanted to walk through, and this is all off the cuff, what I would do. So if I had an appraisal on my desk right now with a converted garage, here's what I would start with. Fundamentally, I've got to ask the question, what have homes with a converted garage actually sold for in the neighborhood? And so I would begin looking at sales. And here's a screencast. I'm just going to show you, walk through a blog post, how to pull comps like an appraiser. I'd start with tight neighborhood boundaries. I want to view all recent sales and listings. I want to look at withdrawns, expireds. I want to use an apples to apples approach. It just basically asks, what have other homes that are similar sold for? And so it's an important distinction with a converted garage because sometimes we have a 1,400 square foot house with a 400 square foot garage, and then the garage is converted, and the owner tries to sell it on par with other 1,800 square foot homes. But the only problem is that it's not really the same as an 1,800 square foot home for a couple of reasons. Number one, it doesn't have a garage like the 1,800 square foot home does. But secondly, sometimes the layout is actually weird. Assuming that the conversion was done very nicely, it's permitted, it looks great, the floor plan might not flow as well. It might be kind of boxy because the house wasn't originally designed to flow as probably that other 1,800 square foot home sold for. And so at times we have square footage on paper that might look similar to another house, but we really have to consider the layout, the quality, and such. But anyway, so we're in our comp search. We're going to be looking for something that's similar in that apples to apples approach. Ideally, we'll find something recent, but probably not. So let's look at some older similar sales in the neighborhood. Let's pour through data. Let's not be afraid to look through years worth of sales, because say I have a sale from 2 years ago, then I can ask myself the question, how did the market treat this property with a conversion? Okay. Did the market accept it? Does it look like it sold on par with other 1,800 square foot homes? Does it look like it sold on par with other 1,400 square foot homes, which might suggest that maybe the conversion was an asset, but then lack of garage was a negative, and maybe those canceled each other out? If I can start to line up a few pairs of sales, then I can let the data speak to me and let the market speak to me. Okay, and I know it's frustrating because sometimes people say, well, give me the adjustment for a converted garage. And I would say there is no one adjustment because there's not one market. Okay, the garage conversion might be totally different in Beverly Hills compared to Compton, or certain neighborhoods in Sacramento at higher price levels, and another neighborhood with a lower price level. Okay, my observation is that in a lot of post World War II neighborhoods in Sacramento, after the war was over, then you have places like Broderick and Arden Manor and North Highlands that were built out. They were starter homes, and so you have a lot of 3-1s, you have some 2-1s, you have 3-2s, and a lot of them are smaller, 11 or 1,000 square feet to 1,200 square feet. They have a lot of garage conversions because it helps these properties simply be larger in an economical way. I mean, a lot cheaper to convert the garage than add square footage to the rear of the house. And so in those neighborhoods, a garage conversion is readily accepted because there's a ton of them. Okay, the market accepts it there. But I can think of certain neighborhoods, price ranges, and zip codes where the lack of a garage is a really big deal. And sort of the tell that it's a big deal is that there are none. Okay, the market doesn't accept this because there are none. Well, of course, besides the one that you or I are valuing. So in those cases, it can become really tricky because we might not find any real competitive sales. Okay, but after we've searched the expanded neighborhood, though, let's stay here for a minute. We can pull outside from the neighborhood if need be. What other competitive areas are there to the subject subdivision? Okay, let's begin to look in those areas to just answer the question, how have buyers responded to a garage conversion? Okay, that's going to really help us out and help give some direct market insight. Okay, and I find that sometimes if an owner is stuck on that, saying, I have an 1,800 square foot home, but then we can produce some data to say, well, it looks like the market's paid, on par, just a hair above 1,400 square foot homes. Okay. One of the things we want to ask is what would the home be worth if it was 1,800 square feet? If the market viewed it that way, what would the home be worth if it was just 1,400 square feet? Okay, where's the bottom of the market? Where's the top of the market? Okay, then ideally, what are similar size sales selling for? You see, so we're asking a lot of questions to help develop the context and see the context for where the conversion is going to fit. Okay, here's another post on my blog. I talk about a few issues because number one, permits, usually they matter greatly. And so I find the market to be forgiving when there's little stuff, a covered patio, or some minor work that's done, not a big deal. Most buyers aren't going to walk in and say, oh, wow, I'm not going to go through with this. But sometimes when there's a converted garage or there's a very significant addition without permits, it can be a difficult issue to try to put a value on. I lucked out a couple weeks ago. I appraised something and the garage was not permitted. And the owner told me that it was done very, very nicely. I would never have known that it was not permitted without checking or without hearing from the owner, because it looked very, very solid. One of the best conversions I've seen. And so I lucked out though, because it had sold on the open market in 2012. And so why that was an advantage is because as I was pulling comps right now, there was really nothing. I mean, I looked all over the place, years worth of information, at least so I had this one previous sale. And I was able to look back in time when it sold. It was a reasonable sale. It was exposed to the market. It wasn't a short sale or nothing funky. But it really competed with homes of similar size. They also had, in this case, I think it was about 1,600 square feet, including the conversion. But the thing is it sold at a lower price tier. And when I began to pair homes together, it looks like it was about 8% difference in value lower because it didn't have a garage. So and that was, I think, $15,000. So it was on the lower end of the price spectrum. So I could guess and say, well, I think here's what the adjustment's going to be. Or I can maybe go back, try to find competitive sales, even look at a sale or two in the past of the subject property to give some context. Okay, in that case, I got really lucky. I talked about quality, and I think that's really important because there's no answer for what a conversion's worth, because quality can differ so much. And so when we have a conversion that's very low quality, my sense in good judgment is that buyers probably aren't going to pay much for it. Okay, if it looks like a shack, then buyers are going to pay what a shack's worth, right? If it looks like a palace, they're going to pay palace type prices. And so that's an important factor, because some garage conversions are done very well, and the homes opened up. It feels like, hey, this is really a nice part of the home. And other times the quality is so low where the owner spent $1,500 to erect a wall to cover up the original garage door, and then all of a sudden we're thinking, hey, great, 400 extra square feet. But the thing is that when buyers walk in there, they recognize the quality, and they're simply not going to pay the same amount price per square foot inside of the house with this garage. It feels like a garage. It looks like a garage besides the one wall. You walk out there and there's the water heater. There's the washer and dryer. There's a concrete perimeter along the floor that's a foot up. I mean, it doesn't feel like the rest of the house. And so that can be a detriment. And that's why sometimes properties with garage, even with permits, why sometimes they can't compete readily with a house that it was fully built 1,800 square feet. Okay, and really the lack of a garage can be a big deal. I realize is that in this day and age, a lot of people actually don't use their garages for parking, but what they do use it for is storage. And so if you take away storage, it can be a big deal for value. All right, so we really have to consider that. This, in some sense, it seems wishy-washy, but what we have to do, value is like a puzzle, and we have to put the pieces together. Let's look and find some similar sales. Did the subject property sell recently? What do buyers expect in the neighborhood? Was it permitted? Is it typical in the neighborhood? What's the quality like? Is there any storage? Does it feel like the rest of the house? Okay, so we put all these pieces together to come up um, with what we would come up with a value for. Okay, so I can't give you a specific answer for what it's worth in your neighborhood. I would only say just try to do this type of research, and you're going to have to spend some real time there. There's no such thing as a 5 minute comp check for something like a garage conversion, unless you're really, really lucky in neighborhoods in Sacramento like Arden Manor. I'm going to be able to find something with a garage conversion, which is fantastic. There's so many. But where it becomes a real struggle is that when there's nothing in the neighborhood, okay? Then you might have to rely on a competitive neighborhood, and you might have to really, bring in asking colleagues, real estate agents and appraisers what they think, and certainly use good professional judgment and as you're in tune with buyers, okay? You might even consider what would it cost to build a garage in the backyard. Okay, is it feasible for that to happen? Can it be permitted? Because maybe a buyer would do that in some of the classic areas of Sacramento. Then if they can get that done for under 20,000, great. Because then if we go in and say, hey, there's no garage, but there's this, it's negative 100,000 or something ridiculous, but then you can easily get it done for fairly cheap for that area, then that's something that we can also consider too. Okay, price doesn't always equal value, but it's something on the table, I think, that we have to think through. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I realize that was a mouthful. Let me know what you think. I'd love for you to share your 2 cents in this conversation, and let's have some fun in the comments below. Feel free to share your take. Okay. Hey, thanks a lot.